Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jenny Allen, and before we get started with today's video, please make sure that you are subscribed to my channel. Okay, thumbs up this video and check the description box below. So for today's video, I had some requests in the comments to do a review on A Pearl in the Sand. Pearl in the Sand by Tessa Afshar, and I'm going to do that for you today. Now please note that this is what I got was the 10th anniversary edition, and this is the more updated version of the book. So this is the one that you need to look for when you purchase it. Sorry, it's a bit the light there. This is the version you need to get, because the original book, it's not the same as this one. This one's been updated, so get this one. Excellent, let me tell you. And when I was trying to see which chapter I'm going to read, I couldn't actually pick a chapter because each chapter weaves into the next chapter. And it's like you're putting an embroidery together. It's like you're sewing a garment. So all I can give you is an overview, because I think reading one chapter at the beginning will not help you to get into the story, because the meaty part of this book is from the middle to the end. And you have to read through the beginning to get the foundation of the meaty parts of this chapter. So to be honest, I couldn't actually get a chapter that I wanted to read to you. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the overview by the publisher. I'm going to read what Tessa actually says about this book. And I think what she'd written is a great synopsis of this book and the overview of it. The book cost me, I think, about £10 or something like £10-11. But let me tell you, it is so worth it. This is my favourite Christian literature. It's my favourite. It's excellent. And I'm reading another book by Tessa, which I will do another book review on later. And I can't put it down. Honestly, her books, she's a fantastic writer. And I will really encourage you to get this book. Now, let me just give you some scriptures of where you can find information about Rahab in the Bible. Now, you want to look at Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 to 16. She is in the genealogy of Jesus in the book of Matthew. And she's also in the roll call of faith, which is in Hebrews 11. Now, the verse about Rahab is Hebrews 11, verse 31. You need to read Joshua chapter 2 and chapter 6. And you also need to read 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 11. 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 11. Now, Rahab had always been one of my favorite Bible characters, but reading this fiction book really gave me a really good flavor of what things might have been like for Rahab, what things might have been like for her. And it is so well written, you really need to get it. Okay, so basically, because I'm going to be looking at my notes. So basically, it's about Rahab and her journey through her teenage years to becoming the wife of a leader of Israel. Now, the leader is Salmon under the leadership of Joshua. So it's her journey, and it's her journey of how she became a Zona. I hope I've pronounced that right. Now, a Zona is it's the word for prostitute. And in the Bible, in the book, it refers to her more of a Zona, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly. It's the story of how she became a zoner through her family's poverty. Now, she had to go and take on this lifestyle because her family got into, they became very, very, very poor, and their fields were not doing very well. So she had to go in and begin to live that life. In the book, you will see everything. Okay, you will read everything. And through helping the Jews, the walls of Jericho fell down. Now, in the book, when the walls had fallen down, she actually meets Salmon for the first time. And it's the story, it's their love story. Okay? And how God used Salmon as an instrument to minister to Rahab's heart and to bring about a transformation through the event of her missing pearl earring. Now, Salmon, when they get married, Salmon gives Rahab his mother's pearl earring. And there is a turning point in the book. There's a chapter just dedicated to the two of them discussing the pearl earring, and hence the title of the book, The Pearl in the Sand. I'm not going to give you any more than that. So it is from that discussion about the pearl earring that the whole story shifts. And that's all I'm going to say. You need to get the book. Okay? And it's a story of redemption. So I'm going to read for you the introduction, or let me see what they've called it here. It's called A Note from the Author, because if I start to read a chapter, I'm going to be giving away a whole plot, and I don't want to be give away too much of the story in the Bible in the reading. Go and get the book. It's only about £10-11. It'll be worth it, trust me. Look at the reviews on Amazon. If you're going to get it through Amazon, you just look at what people say about it. The majority of the comments, they're 5 stars, all of them. Okay, so I'm just going to read to you 3.5 pages of what the author Tessa Afshar has said about this book and this story, and I hope that it whets your appetite enough for you to get it. Okay, so let me start reading. A note from the author. Dear reader, during a visit to Florence over 12 years ago, I noticed that Ponte Vecchio, the famed bridge that had straddled the Arno River for almost 700 years, had tiny shops built round into its walls. They bulged out of the sides of the bridge like odd-shaped barnacles sticking out of the hull of a ship. Walking over this bridge, I was reminded of the story of Rahab. The Bible tells us that Rahab lived in the bowels of a wall too. Her house was built right into the defensive walls of Jericho. As I crossed Ponte Vecchio, I wondered what it was like to live in a wall. Then I realized that we all know a little something about that. Most of us have to contend with walls in the interior places of our souls. Walls built on foundations of fear, rejection, loss, pride. Walls that keep others at bay and shield us from drawing close enough to get hurt again. Now I was hooked. I wanted to write about walls, about living in them, about pulling them down. I wanted to write about Rahab. At that time, I had a terrible habit of writing stories and leaving them unfinished. Partway through the story, I would convince myself that it was boring or plain bad, and no one in their right mind would want to read it. Mostly, my trouble stemmed from fear. I was so afraid of failing that I preferred to leave my stories incomplete rather than have them be pronounced unsatisfactory. Even though I had wanted to be a writer since childhood, I found it preferable never to write a book. I found it preferable never to write a book than to write one and see it fail. One New Year's Eve, as I was praying about my future, I felt very strongly that I was to write a book that year and to finish it. That night, I made a commitment to the Lord that regardless of how I felt, I would finish this novel. I would write out of obedience when I ran out of confidence. That year, I wrote Pearl in the Sand. What I didn't know as I penned Rahab's story was that few publishing houses at the time were accepting biblical fiction. If I had known that, I would have given up on this story and worked on a different idea. God, in His grace, preserved my heart from discouragement by keeping me in the dark. Just as Noah built a boat before a single cloud marred the sky, I worked on my personal ark, a novel based on a biblical story when few in the industry had any interest in the genre. Of course, God's timing was impeccable. By the time the story was finished, the industry was awakening to the burgeoning interest in the genre again. Pearl in the Sand is a book that examines our worth in God's sight. It focuses on forgiveness and redemption. But it is also a story about the healing of a broken marriage. For me, the story of Rahab became truly interesting after her marriage to Salmon. Only God would think of putting together a former Canaanite harlot with one of the leaders of Judah, a man who belonged to one of the foremost families in Israel. How would such an unequal relationship survive? How could it thrive? The more I considered these questions, the more I realized that Rahab's story is the story of God's outrageous grace. And in that sense, it is my story and yours. That was the novel I wanted to write. Through Rahab and Salmon's various struggles in Pearl in the Sand, I wanted to capture the wild nature of grace, of divine love, of the insane new beginnings that God allows. There is a lot of romance in this novel, but perhaps the greatest one is between God and Rahab, and often God and the reader. I started receiving the most astonishing emails and Facebook posts from readers. A man told me that he had been a church-going Christian for years, but it wasn't until he read the earring scene that he experienced his worth to God for the first time. Women poured out their stories of abuse, of violation, of rejection. I have cried a lot of tears over the years reading my precious readers' letters. One woman told me that she could never find words to explain how she felt, but this book finally gave her a way to express her story. A therapist told me that several clients came to her after reading Pearl in the Sand, recognizing in themselves a brokenness we see in Rahab. Perhaps my favourite letter was from a man who told me he was a construction worker, 250 pounds covered in tattoos, and he cried like a baby when he read the scene with the pearl earring. The letters have kept coming over the years. Pearl in the Sand has been translated into 8 languages, so I hear from people around the world. I find this astonishing. This was my first novel, and I wrote it with the mistakes of a novice. In fact, there were certain aspects of A Pearl in the Sand I always wanted to improve. I pray whether you are coming to this story for the first time or for the 10th, that this new edition will minister to your heart. May you fall in love with God in fresh ways and discover you are more beloved than you ever imagined. With profound gratitude, Tessa, 2020. So I didn't read the whole of the note from the author. I left bits out of it, but I hope that I have read enough to give you a taste of the book. Okay, A Pearl in the Sand. It's beautiful. So I hope that was enough to give you a taste. Please get the book. It's only £10-11. You will not regret it. It is beautiful. And as she said in her address to the reader, yes, it's a love relationship between Rahab and Salmon, because it's got a lot of romance in it, beautifully written. And it's a relationship between Rahab and God. But the Holy Spirit also draws you as the reader into this book, and he shows you his value of you, how he values you. Okay, so God bless you. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Make sure that you thumbs up this video and that you check the description box below. If you've read this book or you're going to buy this book and you're reading it, please drop me a comment in the section below. Okay, God bless, and I'll see you in my next video. God bless you.